Flagship Podcast number 279. I'm your host Jamie, and I'm joined by my podcast pals Stephen.
What's happening?
And Melly.
Yes.
It was a lovely week for a touch of revenge. Martin Melly against Ferencvaros. We spoke on the last Flagship Podcast about how this would be a good opportunity for Celtic to sort of compare and contrast how far we've come in a season or so. Ferencvaros obviously taking a bit of a Celtic scalp last year, putting Neil Lennon's team out of the Champions League, and we all knew at that point, well, we didn't know at that exact time, but looking back, you can see
we should have known.
We should have known that is the time that the wheels were well and truly coming off. Completely different result, different performance, and a different afternoon altogether this time.
Oh, totally. A great performance, a dominant performance, and one where we barely even gave them a chance. And just, as you said, it showed the contrast from last season. I said it last week, this is a team, and they look like a team. They look like a very good team on Tuesday.
Well, before we talk about like the broader implications of the game and talk about systems and tactics and all that, can I just say just how much I've enjoyed the last couple of games of football that Celtic have been involved in? I feel like you don't often get the opportunity to say, do you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed those games, being at the games and taking it in and watching the football involved. So I think that's the first thing to say off the bat.
I don't think that's a fluke though. I think that comes off the back of what Ange was saying after the Ferencvaros game about how, and before it as well, how we just look like a lot more settled team now. We've had a month together. The team are starting to gel, as managers like to say. Nobody's coming or going. No last minute people leaving or coming in. The same group are getting used to each other. The manager's starting to get his ideas across. And I think, like you say, it's bringing positive results for us in this game and the St Johnstone game that we're obviously going to talk about, and it's just enjoyable now going back to watch your football.
Well, a worry I flagged up a couple of weeks ago now. I think it was on some flagship or other. They all run into one. They're all kind of the same. But what I worried about, I think it was against Leverkusen, where we talked about that moment where Joe Hart had the ball at his feet for about 30 seconds, and no one was shown for it. No one was turning up, and I thought, right, that's a worry. I'm worried about that. I'm more worried about that than I am any daft individual error or silly own goal or anything like that, because that's a problem. That is against everything that this team is supposed to be. I've spoken before on a number of our podcast properties across Patreon and on this, that I read, as soon as Ange was announced, I read his book. I read his autobiography. Well, it's part autobiography. Yes, I read. I read a book a week, everyone. You're tuned into some intellectuals here.
That's right.
But it's part autobiography, part, just a kind of breakdown of what he believes about in football, and something that stuck with me.
Ange mused. You say things like that, innit?
Yeah, exactly. But the main thing that stuck with me, the main kind of paragraph and part of it that stuck with me, was he was talking about Barcelona and the belief that anyone can just basically emulate that. Everybody says that everybody wants to play like that Barcelona team, not of today, but the big one of like 10 years ago. But what he said was that not everyone can have the best players in the world. Not everyone can have Iniesta, Messi and Xavi and all that, right? But it's not about that for him. What he believes is that if you can't have the best players in the world, what you need to do is work harder, be more together. Work harder for your teammates, make angles, make sure you're available for the pass. So when that happened with Joe Hart, what I thought was, right, forget the system, forget who's all suitable for what position and all that. That is totally against fundamentally what Ange Postecoglou believes about in football. Never mind all like formations and all that. His beliefs about football were kind of laid bare there and were a worry. But I feel like that has totally changed in the last couple of weeks. There was a moment against St Johnstone, actually, which we'll go into later, where Cameron Carter-Vickers was involved in a flare-up, some handbags, right? And everybody get involved. Joe Hart sprinted over it, and I thought, do you know what? Finally, our players are getting involved in these things. We're too soft. We're too nice. We don't get involved. We don't put pressure on the referee.
St Johnstone incident?
Yeah. We don't get involved. We don't put pressure on the referee, and we let them away with murder. There was a game very recently where Ralston was involved in a kind of 50-50 and two players ended up injured, but all the opposition players came running over and were kind of pointing at Ralston, and our players didn't bother. But I feel like now, finally, we're
stand up for each other.
We're together as a team.
Melly, Stephen says we don't have the best players in the world, so we can't really, I don't know, tell you what, watching Jota and Ferencvaros in that game, I'm starting to think we might have two who are just on, I think they could probably break into the Barcelona team now, given how bad Barcelona are playing right now. They were definitely the two standouts for me. Jota, we're speaking about him every week on this podcast now, definitely coming in that game. That ball was absolutely sublime. Ferencvaros' first touch and finish, brilliant. Callum McGregor, brilliant. But let's talk about the goal. Let's talk about them too.
It was one for the ages, wasn't it? It was one of the best goals you'll see. You'll remember that for a long time. Delicious, I might add. Absolutely delicious.
There is the official stamp, the official Melly stamp.
The ball through is, it's inch perfect for the guy. The first touch is sublime, as you said, and the finish just coolly slots it home. It's everything you want to see from Celtic. I think, was it last week I said about not scoring goals in the counter-attack and we get the Motherwell one? That one there was even better. It was one of the goals of the round, and UEFA put it on their website and all that. It was brilliant to watch, and we've missed that from Celtic recently, that quick bang, it's in the back of the net. It always happens to us all the time in Europe. Teams get the ball and within seconds, how did they score? We're doing it to teams now, and it shows that Ferencvaros didn't have a second to get back in. It didn't matter what they'd done. They couldn't close down Jota enough, and the ball through was inch perfect. There's nothing you can do to stop that. It's breaking away from their corner, I think.
It's a deadly duo. Jota and Ferencvaros, they seem to have formed a really good partnership.
Even if we wind it back slightly further as well, this is why you play it from the back. This is why everyone believes that you should do that. It's because things like that can come of it. If we just launched up the pitch, that goal simply doesn't happen. That's why we play it from the back. But the two of them together for that goal, the touch, the pass, of course, is absolutely brilliant. The kind of, everybody loves a kind of outside of the foot drilled pass. But see the touch from Kyogo, that it kills the keeper, right? And not literally, he pulled through. He made it through, but it kills the keeper because he is retreating, he's running back, and the touch, you can actually see him change direction because he now has a decision to make. Do I keep running towards my goal or do I try and close it down? If he had taken a touch like any normal human would have, and maybe popped it 10 yards in front of him, he still would have been able to run onto it. But he kills the ball, and the keeper is completely taken out of it.
As soon as Furuhashi touched that ball, this is what the keeper heard. Dearly beloved, we are gathered today. He had no choice. He had to bring him back for the brink.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and that was quite soon after half time. I think it was just within 10 minutes of half time. But the first half, Celtic dominated the ball, didn't give up much possession, didn't give up many chances, but they didn't really create anything either. And then into the second half, again, I was getting a bit, not worried, but just that way, like Celtic haven't really created anything for the crowd to get behind them. But once the second half came out, they'd done that, and then to get that goal, and the place was just rocking, like half free on a Tuesday, 50,000 people there. That's absolutely incredible. Fair play to everybody that made it.
Fair play to everybody that made it, but UEFA, come on to fuck. I mean, seriously. But that just shows you as well, like there's obviously been a lot of stuff going on with the fans as of late and all that, but we will make it to games. You give us, we're going to get there and we're going to support the team, and I don't know how many half days we're putting in Glasgow.
We're going to end up with one at 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that if you put that message out there into the ether.
But that was a ridiculous time to schedule a match.
It was, but does it matter now? The things kind of worked out well for us because we've got to play Tuesday, Saturday now, so maybe put a wee bit of pressure on Rangers for a change. Instead of us being the chasers, we can get the points on the board and then go. So it meant as well, when we won the game last week, we got to make subs. This game we won it, we've got to make subs. So Celtic they're managing games now because we've got more options now, and we've seen with the weekend 1 or 2 changes into the team and we still look as good. And after that first goal, a European game, I didn't think Celtic were going to lose it. I didn't think they were going to be that quick, let in 2 goals and that. I just, that game, for how good Celtic played, the most pleasing aspect of it was we never looked like conceding, not once. I think they had a shot, Joe Hart saved it just because some of the guy wasn't closed down, but it was a routine save for Joe Hart. It wasn't
2 shots on target they had all afternoon.
They'd one early on that wasn't on target, but it was quite close in. The guy kind of looped over the bar. It was quite early in the game. But when we're talking about not conceding, actually after scoring or the heads going down, I actually need to give credit to Anthony Ralston for a goal-saving tackle, which was very, very shortly after Celtic had scored. So if that had gone in, then it's a different game we're dealing with, because then we are sitting at this table again talking about that Celtic in Europe moment, all that kind of stuff. So that killed that took that out of the equation. So it's not the first time Ralston has done that this season. I think that's our first match in 14 we've had a clean sheet in Europe in the Europa League. Is that right?
A first in 14. I thought Callum McGregor was absolutely excellent. I had a look at his stats. He was like first for completed passes, first for shots on target, first for touches, first for winning the ball back, winning possession back. How good is it actually having a captain that brings actual footballing ability to the side, more than dig, more than leadership, more than these intangibles that Scott Brown undoubtedly brought to the side. But when we need a player to actually perform, Callum McGregor's doing it on the pitch.
But football's changed so much over the last 10 years, but 5 years the most. Like, people always say, we need dig in midfield. We need good footballers. But that's what, if Callum McGregor, I think he missed the Leverkusen game, didn't he? If he was there, he'd have taken the ball off Joe Hart. So it's one of those things that the guy is the total linchpin in that team. The team, don't want to say they rely on him, but he's the captain. He's probably the best player. He's the most important player. He makes it tick. And again, he's just used to be 7 out of 10. It's 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 every week for him.
It's great that he seems to have really bought into Ange. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the players have. We'll talk. Mikey Johnson made some really positive comments midweek about Ange Postecoglou and how much he's loving playing under him and all the players are. But Callum McGregor especially, there was a clip doing the rounds on social media, so I think it was actually on Celtic TV. I think there was a fan there that was having some difficulties, and the manager and Callum McGregor went over to him to see and talk to him and get a picture and all that. And Callum McGregor's really taken on Ange's instructions, but he seems to me to be fully bought in, loving this captaincy.
Well, these things make sound like a kind of trite cliche, but it's vitally important that managers have that kind of lieutenant on the pitch. I mean, look, but Scott Brown was that for Brendan Rodgers and for Neil Lennon. Ronnie Dyler didn't have it. He didn't have guy that was carrying out his instructions on the field. He didn't have someone who had his corner on the pitch, and that's unfortunate. But
especially someone as influential as Callum McGregor. And Joe Hart as well seems to have totally bought into what Ange is doing, and Ange made him sort of sub-captain, whatever you want to call it, when the other captains are available.
Vice-captain.
Well, he's not vice-captain because James Forrest's vice-captain.
Is he actually?
I think James Forrest is vice-captain. So
I don't know about that.
If McGregor's injured, it's Forrest. And if Forrest is injured, then he gives it to Joe Hart.
When do we get to beat on?
Oh, well, probably very shortly after Joe Hart, actually.
That's actually kind of one of the more senior players, actually, having said that. But yeah, it's hugely
important.
Do you
know, actually, bowling goalie was going to be Ange's first choice for captain, but he just wasn't allowed to pick him.
Oh, jeez. Right.
Please don't.
That's a reference we've just thrown out there, but go and search Twitter for that kind of thing. We're not going to get into it. We're not going to lower ourselves to it, but there is a belief out there that Ange is not allowed to pick bowling goal. There we are. But yeah, just to finish off on what I was saying there, it's vitally important that Callum McGregor, or rather Ange Postecoglou, has that guy on the pitch, and Callum McGregor has basically just totally embodied it. He's embodied, he's carried on that Mr. Celtic sort of thing. And I know we don't necessarily need that kind of thing. As you said, Melly, it's far more important that we've got good players. And we're keeping clean sheets just now. And again, people can point to the opposition and say they're not that good and all that. St Johnstone aren't willing to attack. But we're keeping clean sheets just now without the need for a destroyer. The guy who's in there breaking things down. We haven't really needed that.
Yeah, I always say it when you look at the best teams in the world. Well, Chelsea have got Kante, but he's not a destroyer there. No team really has that guy in there anymore. But just when you're talking about Callum McGregor and even the contrast to Ferencvaros, the contrast to this time last season, our third game in the Europa League group, we get beat 4-1 off Prague.
Yeah.
And Callum McGregor was saying about
disjointed. Those famous comments.
We didn't have all the, and he was very honest in that interview. That's not happening now. He's doing his job. The whole team knows what they're doing. They're not fully there yet, but they can contrast this to last year when we were getting absolutely destroyed home and away 4-1 off the team that third seed team that we should be beating. We've come a long way, and it's not just the result, it was the performance as well. It's one of the most dominant ones. I know it is the team that we should be beating, but I don't think many teams could have lived with us in the way we were just kept the ball the other night.
It was exactly what Ange talks about. It was especially in the second half. They were beat. I mean, Ferencvaros were beat. They couldn't chase shadows any longer. They were punch drunk.
The only thing it was missing was an extra couple of goals, which they definitely could have had. Jota missed a big chance towards the end, and there was.
Jota's had the most. I think he's joint top shots in the Europa League. 12.
Was that right? Yeah, right.
Turnbull missed that good one as well, didn't he, when he went through?
Of course, so that was really the only thing missing to really put a shine on what was a pretty dominant performance. I think it was sort of. I've watched it back since, and I think there was a general feeling at the time that the first half was a little bit flat, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Now, I know I'm talking with the benefit of hindsight, but I think it was really just missing a goal.
Yeah,
really. I think that's all the performance was missing, and there's been a little bit of talk since the game and since the St Johnstone game about Celtic struggling to break through a low block. That's because it's very hard to do that.
That's why teams do it.
It's famously very difficult to do that. There isn't a magic formula for beating these things because all these teams have different individual players, different individual setups. Yes, you can call it a low block because of their positioning on the pitch, but every game presents its different challenges. No, I don't think there is a magic pill for it, or else whoever can find the magic pill for that would be the best manager in the world.
And that's what the way Ange tries to do it, obviously, is chasing teams down, moving the ball from side to side, which was a great example of that. The St Johnstone game, you saw St Johnstone getting pulled from side to side, switching positions and all that sort of stuff. And this Ferencvaros game, our energy levels and our fitness really got us through as well.
Yeah, the missed penalty was a bit of a blow-in, but
a good height for the keeper, wasn't it? Those ones
from old Callum, but at the same time, you never felt, oh no, that's going to cost us, because they had nothing. We didn't give them anything to hold on to, and like, when you're talking about Ferencvaros and St Johnstone, both very well set up teams. Like, as soon as the Ferencvaros, we had the ball playing out, you could see Ferencvaros knew exactly what they were doing. They were into shape. They was trying to cut off the space for Celtic, and I was like, they are very well drilled. Same with St Johnstone, but at the same time, Celtic, their game got them through it. We won the penalty, and then the second goal, we won that by pressing. There was 3-4 players pressing them into mistakes. The boy running across the box with his own box with the ball, and then passes it in. Callum McGregor nips in, Jota into Turnbull, and then it's in the net.
Stunning finish.
Well, filthy, Chris Sutton described it as. I use filthy in a different way. It could be like a peach, or that was utter filth, but he must have thought like, oh, it's filthy. He's managed to score like that.
Talking about it as if it's literally disgusting. Filthy, right, I see.
How far do you think this team have come on in a year? So let's have a wee look back at that Ferencvaros game. You know, that was
in 2 months. 2 months. How far have we come on?
Yeah, defeats the point I was trying to make though about the two Ferencvaros games. That was a good wee gimmick. You know, that was Neil Lennon's side. That was the beginning of the end. We looking back, that was the beginning of the end, and it's quite ironic or poetic even that this Ferencvaros win for Ange Postecoglou's team, it could cement the exact moment when this team finally gelled together. You know, from the end of one team to the sort of beginning of another.
Well, that's what I would say. I'd say the club itself. I'd say Celtic have come some way, but I don't know if we can necessarily the team has. I don't know if we can say the team has come a long way, because I think what comes into this conversation would be talk about, you know, Pedro Caixinha's favourite, the footballing cycle. I think that team that faced Ferencvaros over a year ago was just undeniably, inarguably at the end of its rope. It was at the end of its cycle.
I would argue against that insofar as, not that I disagree with you on principle, but I would say that I think the end of that cycle was brought about by the manager's inability to navigate games like that. So as he started getting bad results, players were like, look, what are we doing under this guy, you know?
See Man United.
Yeah.
Well, true. But there is that. But there is, I mean, I'm loath to completely agree with Neil Lennon because he keeps talking about it. But I think there is something in the fact that those players were done. Those players needed, not only wanted to go, they needed to go, because it was we'd wrung that sponge well and truly dry with those players, and we saw what happened last season. There's no really any point in talking about it, but that's what happens if you just force players to stay against their will, and people will kind of bristle at that and say, well, you get to play for Celtic, you know, win trophies and all that. Yes, but again, we're kind of at that point, you're kind of bumping up against the rules of football and just keeping players.
And the
for
players
the sake
need
of it.
somebody that inspires confidence in them.
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
when we saw against Ferencvaros last season, I had a wee look back. That was 28 shots we had at Ferencvaros, but we only got 9 on target. I think we had 18 and 8 against Ferencvaros this season, and that was sort of typical Neil Lennon style. It's like throw everything at it, shots from range, high volume shots, lumping it up, defenders, and you don't see any of that with Ange. I don't see a time where Ange is going to go to his players, right, we'll stick Carter Vickers up front to try and win a goal here. Right, keep shooting, see what happens, feed off the scraps. Ange's, you know, and you say this and it sounds a bit daft when you're not winning, but Ange's plan B is just do plan A better.
Yeah.
And that's it. He's got a plan. The players know the plan. The players are bought into the plan. He's got the players on the pitch that are trying their best. Some of them are more capable than others, are carrying out his instructions. Whereas Neil Lennon didn't. Neil Lennon just had, right, go out and win the game. Come on, here we go. Launch, shot, cross, try something.
This is why a few weeks ago I said we need to just keep playing like this.
Yeah.
Just keep playing like this until it comes right. And now we're starting to see the fruits of that. We've got options to bring off the bench. We've got Giamakis is now looking like an option. It was just taking a wee while, but we've seen the Alkmaar game. You're like, right, maybe this team has something. This is another game where, there's something here. We're building towards something, and it could be very, very good. And look, see the chances you're talking about with Neil Lennon shooting from everywhere. The chances in that game, the first goal, look where Kyogo scores that from. That's a really good goal-scoring opportunity. The second goal as well, good goal-scoring opportunity. Jota's one right in there. He should score that. And David Turnbull should score, plus the penalty. They're all very good, well-cut-out chances Celtic have made. It's not just these shots from miles out and deflections or that. So it's clear-cut chances we're creating.
See where Kyogo scored from. Now, friend of the podcast, John Paul,
yes,
well known, nice guy, Celtic content creator as well, tweeted after the game that he reckons Kyogo took that touch from the exact point that Nakamura scored the free kick against Man United, and then he put up two images side by side that showed that it was basically the same square inch.
Nakamura being the last Japanese player to score at Celtic Park.
Right, yeah. Well, and this means nothing that he took it from the same position on the pitch, but it was just quite nice.
I thought you were going to.
It means absolutely nothing, but yeah,
I thought you were going to pull some amazing stat out of your bag. Like, it was exactly the same position where Nakamura took his free kick. Leverkusen and Real Betis drew, so they're on 7 points. We're on 3. Ferencvaros are on 0. You'd expect.
Kind of get grannied now, lads.
No. Well, you kind of get grannied. You'd expect Ferencvaros, us to beat Ferencvaros in a away leg, wouldn't we?
If we play like that, we really should, because they didn't cause us problems, and if we keep the ball like we did again, they're not going to score against us. And we've seen we can score goals, we've seen we can keep the ball. We are now solid at the back as well, and that is something that we haven't been for a long time this season. We don't look like conceding chances, we don't look like conceding shots, and everybody has settled in and knows what they're doing. That defence, the goalkeeper and back four, usually 4 out of 5 you can pretty much guarantee are going to be playing. That's what we want. We needed to build these partnerships, and it's just taken a while, but with 3 clean sheets in a row, when was the last time Celtic done that?
No. That Starfelt, again, we spoke about him last week. I thought he was excellent again. I think he's been great in the last 2 games.
Isn't he?
Oh, definitely. I think he's been terrific again the last couple of games. There was that moment quite late on against Ferencvaros where he dithered on the ball a wee bit. But that kind of goes towards what I was talking about earlier on, about how they're more of a team, they're more together. See, when that happened, no one stood about going, no. Joe Hart dealt with it. Joe Hart just came over and sorted it out for his teammate, and that's what it's all about. That's going to happen. I'm afraid that a byproduct or a result of playing in this manner, we're going to make one mistake in every game, realistically, unless it's against St Johnstone or whatever. But at that level, it's very difficult to have a perfect game.
And we're going to make mistakes playing crap football or not.
Exactly.
We're going to make mistakes in all types of football.
See, to give him credit, we were coming back from the St Johnstone game at the weekend there, and Michael Stewart was on the radio, on Sports Sound, talking exactly about that. He said you could this idea, this belief that we'll play crap football for 5 games, get a couple of results, and everything will be fine. It's just total nonsense. It
doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know everyone. It's very difficult to say that. It's very easy rather for me to say that when you're in the midst of a few poor results. It's quite tricky to sit there when we've maybe lost a couple of games or drawn a couple of games. Yeah, that's kind of
where I would take issue with Michael Stewart. It wasn't necessarily that, because I said it on this podcast, it wasn't necessarily that I was saying, right, stop playing good football, play crap football, start to win. Yeah. I think what people might have been saying at the time, and this is just to disagree with Michael Stewart, who, by the way, I've got a pal, and she thinks that Michael Stewart is the most handsome guy in Scotland, which is astonishing. So if you're out there, Michael Stewart, I'm sure no one else thinks that. I can put you in touch with that. But what I would say about that to Michael Stewart is, it wasn't so much as, right, play crap football for a couple of games and win. I think people were getting a wee bit nervous with Ange saying, whatever you're trying here isn't working, so you can't keep doing it because it looks as if the results are going to continue this way. He's got a few good players back, and the players are starting to click, and it's not panned out that way. Speaking about players that are really bought into what Ange is trying to do, Mikey Johnson was in the press. He's been great. I love the way he plays football. The fans are the same. It's what Celtic is all about, attacking football at all times. That's what he wants. With Callum McGregor on the ball, it's about going forward. Even if it's 2-0, we're still looking for more goals, and I love that. I've always been a goal scorer, so I want to get my goals back into my game. I want to see Celtic.
You're reading these?
I'm reading them, mate. I want to see Celtic doing well, and the players are coming along and they're doing well. Yada, yada, yada. Another player that's bought in, got some minutes against Ferencvaros today and St Johnstone.
Yes. Look sharp, very sharp.
He's looking sharp. It's another one of these players. It gives us options.
Yeah, and that's what we've been looking for. He looked sharp against Ferencvaros, and he came on against Johnstone, hit the post. And when you're looking at Celtic players, James Forrest and Mikey Johnstone to come back, they would have made a difference at the start of the season. But them alongside Jota and Abada's went off the boil a wee bit, but when he's on form, it's 4 players that you love watching because they take players on, they make things happen, and to have these options, where like at the weekend where Abada's not doing too well, so he comes out the team, we've got good players.
Yep.
Mikey Johnstone, just one of those guys I like watching because he'll take a player on, he'll try and make something happen, and in this Ange team, that's exactly what he wants.
Mikey Johnstone is probably 1 goal away from us having to issue a "y'all must have forgot" about Mikey Johnstone.
I really want to see him. I want to see him back in the team. I want to see him playing regular football because he's a young player that had lots of promise.
Yeah,
and he seems to have put on. Sorry to interrupt, but he seems to have put on that bulk that a lot of people are talking about.
I don't know about that.
You think he needs to put on more?
Aye.
I think he's taking a wee stretch, as my mum would say.
It's like Walter the Softy. There's a reference for the kids there. Mikey, the reason I say y'all must have forgot, it's because when we're talking about players being missing, it's always just Juranovic, who's back now, but Julian, James Forrest. I feel like we never mentioned Mikey Johnstone.
No.
Now, in fairness,
that's
because he's never fit.
I think he's been out for most of my adult life.
I just want him to have that thing where his biggest moment at Celtic isn't that meme of Neil Lennon going, he's scored loads of goals, he's done really well at the start of that season, then got the injury.
Do you think Ange will ever tell one of the players to fuck off when he comes off injured? Fuck off.
Fuck off, mate. But Mikey Johnstone, actually, during the St Johnstone game, it was half time. I was actually just standing there. Your mind kind of wanders at half time, but I was standing there watching Mikey Johnstone just do some very, very basic just passing drills, right? So they're standing maybe like a wee triangle. Mikey Johnston's technique is unbelievable. No, people will laugh at me saying that about some stupid passing at half time, but believe me, I have watched some players who can't do that during that half time. So I'm just the way he connects with the ball was absolutely unbelievable. Just cutting across it and just swerving it directly to people's feet. So it'll be great to have him back and fully firing and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think he's far off it. I don't think he's well. I could say this about a long time now. I could say he's been just on the verge of becoming a really big player for Celtic. But that's been kind of in the offing for about 2 years now. But now that he's playing under Ange and from what you've read out, thoroughly enjoying it, then there's no reason to believe he can't be a major player going forward.
Things are looking up for old Mikey.
Oh aye, footballer can kick the ball well, lads. It is something that I've always liked Mikey Johnstone. I've always thought he could be a good player for Celtic because I look back and on this podcast and talking, we wrote off James Forrest at points. We wrote off Callum McGregor because you just don't think they're going to be good enough when they're playing in a poor team. But
a long time ago, listeners. If you're a new listener, this wasn't recent.
This was when the
5 or 6 years ago. We thought, we might have criticised Callum McGregor.
But it's something we do. Like, not all players that come through at Celtic are going to be Kieran Tierney or Aidan McGeady, just guys that come in instantly and make an impact and stay in the team. You get guys like McGregor and Forrest who take a while, and James Forrest probably a good comparison because of the amount of injuries he had at the start of his career. Mikey Johnstone also spoke about working with a new sports scientist, how it's really helped him get over his injuries. So if we let Mikey Johnstone get over that, he's coming to that age where he probably knows how to deal with his injuries, and him, Tony Ralston, McGregor, Forrest, these guys may be taking till the
youth prospects as well.
Yeah, early 20s before they really establish themselves. So we should give these players a wee bit of leeway sometimes.
Now, you might have noticed at the beginning of the show we didn't plug the Patreon. That's because last week in the YouTube comments someone complained that we started the show by plugging the Patreon. So there will be no Patreon plug this week. Patreon.com/20minute-tims if you want extra content. We do previews, we do reviews, we do videos, we do blogs. It's fantastic. We do tactics and analysis and data and meet the CSCs. We've got so much great stuff on there. Patreon.com/20minute-tims. And if you're the guy that complained last week, what we're going to do is we're going to put the link in the description so you can just click it and sign right up. Nay bother. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
See you in the comments, clean shirts.
Celtic v St Johnstone, Martin Melly. 3 league wins on the bounce?
Yes, 3 league wins, and we're looking good again. Another 2-0 win where we never look like losing the game, never look like conceding. And this is what we want to see from Celtic. Stephen said it's enjoyable going to the games. It is. It's brilliant. 3 2-0 wins in a row where we just look like a proper team now. And again, 2 changes to the team, 2 players that slotted in seamlessly and 2 players that scored the goals for us. So things are looking rosy at old Celtic Park these days.
Stephen, Anthony Ralston and Juranovic, is that our best full-back pairing? Ralston on the right, Juranovic on the left?
Maybe not on paper. I would still like to see Juranovic on the right just to fully see what he can do, because he's had a kind of, I think I've said it before, he's had a disrupted start to his Celtic career. Of course, he's played in a couple of positions, he's had an injury, but I'd like to see him on the right. But that's not.
The reason I mention that is because I think I prefer Ralston to Greg Taylor. Just maybe he's not a better player, but just his style. He's more attacking, he's more forward thinking, he's more aggressive.
Yeah, I can see that. I can't really disagree with that. Just for my own curiosity's sake, I'd like to see Juranovic on the right and Greg Taylor on the left, just for a couple of games, just to see how it goes. That's not me, asserting that would be better. I'd just like to see it, just for the sake of it.
Really, wait till next year, unfortunately, for Greggy boy to be back.
He's still struggling. It was a bad injury. He got ran off the old shoulder, wasn't it? He should have done that thing that Mel Gibson does in the Lethal Weapon. He just smashes his shoulder against the wall and pops it back into place. Another 25-year-old reference there.
That's the second Lethal Weapon reference on this podcast, because you and I in the At The Match podcast for the St Johnstone game called ourselves the Riggs and Murtaugh of Celtic fan podcasting,
Exactly. But I'd like to see that just once or twice, just to see.
Does that mean I'm Joe Pesci?
Yeah. You're Joey Getz. Oh, you're Leo Getz. And you need Leo Getz.
Okay.
I know. They gave me a lobotomy. Do you know what that is? Manscaped.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, imagine being under the age of 25 and trying to listen to this podcast. But there we go.
Everyone's seen Lethal Weapon.
I hope so.
Everyone's seen Lethal Weapon 3.
It's coming up to Christmas and everything, right? Yeah. Fullbacks, I think both were really good against St Johnstone. I like Juranovic on the left, having not really been all that sure about him there before. But again, I just like to see these guys in their preferred positions just once or twice. But I think they actually played really well. I think Juranovic is going to be a big player for Celtic going forward as he settles into the team. One or two dodgy passes in the game, but that's to be expected. He's still developing as a Celtic player, but I think he's going to be very important going forward.
Yakimakis made his first start. Can we agree on a pronunciation for that, Stephen? Anything you want? Right, so I'm going to throw in either Yakimakis or Giacomakis, as Ange has pronounced that. I think. Anything you want to go first?
The truth is, I don't know, but it's definitely not Geomakis, because that cuts out a whole syllable right in the middle of it. So
Melee, we just call him the Yak, or the Jack in the box.
Giacomakis I've went for.
Giacomakis.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he started.
Yep.
Glad we settled on something there.
It looks like we finally got a number 7, boys. I mean, Stephen must be delighted, but I thought he looked good. He looked decent when he came on during the week, and then again at the weekend, his first start, and I thought he was good.
That work rate again.
Exactly, that's it. You're expecting a guy maybe that size, just going to be staying up there, maybe that poacher, but he puts himself about in a very good way. He's closing down, he's pressing, and it looks like Ange just sort of picked him out and went, yep, he'll fit into the system because he looks good and he's different to Kyogo. He's got that physical presence and he can put himself about. That means his son Jamie McCart, he was very good at the weekend, and he gave him a torrid time as well. He's Celtic maybe need this in some games, a wee bit of presence up there. And he did exactly that. And his goal just pretty much in the 6-yard line. Brilliant. I loved seeing him playing. Hopefully get some game time into him and he can be a really good player for us.
We mused, Stephen, before the game, the front three of Furuhashi, Giacomakis and Jota. And we sort of thought, well, is Furuhashi so good that you could play him at any place across the front three? I think we can both agree that maybe that position where he was on the right-hand side isn't necessarily his best. He's a wee bit neutered out there. But with Giacomakis coming in, does that give Ange a bit of a selection problem? How does he get both of these guys in the team and get the best out of the pair of them?
Yeah, is it a headache? One of those nice headaches to have that they talk about in football. It's going to be difficult to get both of them into the team because Kyogo, maybe on paper, he'll say that he doesn't mind playing out on the right, but I think granted it's only a very small sample size, it's only one game, it was completely ineffective. I think if I was going to put him out wide, it would probably be on the left. If I was going to have the choice, don't think he was very good on the right. But ultimately, this game was, as we were talking about earlier, the low block and all that, and finding the ways around this variety, and we need to try different
spice
things.
Of life, Stephen.
It is the spice of life, and they don't say that for no reason. Really, you're quite right. Towards the end of that game, there was so much rotation in the front three that it was quite hard to keep up with at one point because the subs were getting made. Even Ayeti came on, Abada came on and went through the middle. So we've got different things they can try up there. Not all of it is going to be effective, but the game was complete control from Celtic. It was just about patience, really.
And that's what I like to see, because when St Johnstone came to Celtic Park, they're organised, they're difficult to beat. They made that clear that's what they were going to do. They had 10 men behind the ball, 11 men behind the ball for the majority.
5-5, wasn't it, really?
For the majority of the game. And as Steve said, it was about pressure against melee, it was about energy levels, it was about passing that ball from side to side and waiting for the gaps to open up. And this was a really good example of that, because you watched that game back, Celtic very patient, moving the ball side to side, constant movement. We were even sort of changing, I think at one point, Furuhashi and Jota switch sides, Turnbull and Rogic switch sides, just trying to mix it up a wee bit and be patient and find these gaps through. And eventually it came. I think, was that a St Johnstone mistake that led to the Ralston cross coming in?
It's a kind of funny bounce, wasn't it?
And Ralston crosses it and Giacomakis is there. And again, as soon as that hits the back of the net, that's their game plan undone. And Celtic... it's cruise control, really. The second goal was always coming. There's a couple of penalty shouts in there, but I never ever felt like... there's been games in this season where you felt we need another goal because it just takes one attack from them, but we're not giving away those attacks now. It probably will happen.
Didn't have a single shot on target, St Johnstone all afternoon.
No.
That's it. All they did was lump up to that big Kane up front, and it didn't work out. Their game plan, fair enough, but Celtic are better than that, and it's just about breaking these teams down, and when they do it, it's going to be one of those games which is going to win this now. And 2-0, fair scoreline, could have had more. Ref could have done a wee bit more to help us as well.
That was absolutely ridiculous. Some of the refereeing decisions in that game were pitiful, and that especially that one where Carter Vickers got booked for being kicked. Yeah, I mean, what does it? It's that mentality. You think the ref's thinking, if I send this ball, who was it? Was it Kane?
Yeah.
Big Daddy Kane. If he
another 25, 30-year-old reference there.
Oh, that's a good, the ref's thinking, if I send him off, I've killed this game for St Johnstone. So I need to try my best to keep as many St Johnstone players in the park here. And even how many fouls was that in the lead up to the penalty? It was comical.
If these referees in Scotland are good for one thing, and it is one thing, good for the quads, jumping up and down at my seat every 2 seconds. I've basically done about 3 sets of squats by the end of that second half.
They had Mr. Magoo running the line because he's standing there, right? And the foul on Carter Vickers happens 8 yards in front of him. He sees him get kicked in the chest, and he just goes, I don't see nothing.
Oh, but you can't react like that, guys. If you react like that, I know. Basically, do you know what I've always believed?
But you're right. People say that you can't react like that, but see the reaction. It doesn't diminish the action. Just because you got up raging that some guy kicked you in the stones doesn't mean he didn't really kick you in the stones.
What I've always believed about these things, handbags in football, is that the punishment should be in the rules. If you're going to pretend you want to fight, you should.
Well, like ice hockey.
Make them fight. And let's see how long they last with Cameron Carter-Vickers throwing them about like the Incredible Hulk, punching them into the ground like a tent peg. Let's see how that plays out. Instead of the kind of hold me back stuff after you've just committed a pretty cowardly foul.
We already mentioned that it was good somewhat to see all the boys get involved, O'Malley backing their teammates up. Joe Hart right over there. Joe Hart loves it. I think Joe Hart is having the time of his life. I'm going to wait till we get some sort of career retrospective on Joe Hart, but I think he is having an Indian summer in his career, some of the best times of his career. You can just tell he's thriving at Celtic.
Yeah, he could have sat there with his phone in that game for most of the first and second half because he'd nothing to do. I can't remember him making any saves. It's all about him just getting the ball, passing it to the centre halves and starting the ball again.
It's funny you should mention that passing stuff because there were concerns over whether Joe Hart could play with his feet when he came into Celtic. And one of the things that Joe Hart said in his press conference was, look, if the system works, all I'm doing is 8-12 yard passes. It's no bother. And that is what he does. That's the majority of Joe Hart stuff. It's take it, recycle it, move on.
There was 3 times I remember in the second half of the Ferencvaros game where he played it long and not once did it go to the intended target. It was either cut out or Ferencvaros won the ball. That's why we don't do it, because we haven't got the players to do that. But maybe with Giacomakis now it might be a bit different, but with the players that were on the pitch at that time, it doesn't work. We're better getting it to our wide players or Jota or McGregor, those kind of guys that can create something. When Joe Hart, Ralston loves it as well, by the way. He is right over there with the calves bursting out the sock. He absolutely loves a scrap.
The Joe Hart, I was watching him just play these passes, and it was pretty good. His passing was pretty good at the St Johnstone game. I thought I was reminded of what you said about it at the time, Melly. It was like we don't need I don't think it's not an exact quote, but we don't need Ederson, we don't need Alisson, we don't need Manuel Neuer. We just need a guy who's good enough, a guy who can just play some passes, and that's exactly what he is. And he strikes that balance of being able to do that in a good enough manner and keep the ball at the net, neither of which we've had. People can throw these stats about Barkas at me about how good he is with his feet all they like. They can.
I mean, all you need to do is look at the Ferencvaros game for last year if you want to see what Barkas is like.
It's painful watching that.
He's dreadful, and I don't know if he's a good keeper or not, Barkas, but the truth is he's not done it at Celtic at all. He's been absolutely woeful. So to have Joe Hart in, he's been an absolutely great signing. There's no two ways about it. Joe Hart's been great for Celtic.
Joe Hart, Juranovic, Starfelt, Carter Vickers, Giakoumakis, Jota, Furuhashi, all these players are new signings, and we were curious about how the window was going to pan out. There was some questions over, some of these signings, and we did say when we recorded the sort of post-transfer window flagship podcast, it was like, we'll not be able to tell for a few months whether or not this was a successful window, but so far, all these guys are looking really, really strong. Well,
that was going to be part two of what I said earlier on about the comparison between this game and the previous Ferencvaros game. That team was on the way out. All those players wanted to leave. This team's on the way up. Or so we'd like to believe. This team are still getting better, still getting used to working with each other, getting used to Ange's system, all that kind of stuff. Being together as a team, they're getting better at that, whereas the last team simply weren't. And I think that's the key difference. These are all brand new players, so we're not that's not what we're doing. We're not saddling them with that result from last year. It's just a good comparison point as well.
Juranovic, penalty taker every time he plays, Melly.
Oh, I buried that one right in the corner. Keeper, you just don't save those. No. Look composed. With McGregor, I kind of get that feeling during the week that he wasn't going to score. He's missed one before. I think the lefties taking penalties, and I think the keeper was left-handed, so it just wasn't great. But Juranovic slotted it home, 2 out of 2. He's the man to take it. I'm not convinced of him at left back, but as you said, right now he's the best option because Bolingoli I'm not going to trust. Greg Taylor's injured. Scales didn't even make the bench of the weekend, and Montgomery, he was all right against Ferencvaros, but we've just seen when Juranovic comes in, he's a better player. So right now, I think he's the man for it. And Celtic the system's working now, so it's not a big deal having somebody playing over that side for me.
I saw Tony Ralston's agent listen to 20 Minute Tim's. A lot of talk about Tony Ralston getting a new contract. If he's ever going to get one, now's the time. Get that 5-year deal.
7
years? Wowza. Special mention to Celtic legend Effie Ambrose making his return to Celtic Park. He's turned into old Scottish journeyman.
How did that pass me by? I turned up and Ambrose was on the pitch. I was like, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea he played for St Johnstone anymore. He's done the Scottish football rounds now, hasn't he? That's his third or fourth club. So amazed he's still going. What age must he be now? Although he was kind of deceptively young when Celtic signed him, wasn't he? And then he's just been rattling around for years. So he must
33.
Be, is that old?
He's 33. Aye. Celtic, Hibs, Derby, Livingston, and now on to St Johnstone. We did mention referees, and we forgot to mention once again the referees helped Rangers maintain 3 points in that game by awarding them a penalty for a foul that was outside the box. The refereeing standard in Scottish football is absolutely abysmal. The Sky Television standard of coverage of Scottish football is absolutely abysmal. Stephen, you tweeted from 20 Minute Tim's. In fact, what did you say about last weekend? I don't want to misquote, but was it another weekend pass with not a single live game or something? Well,
the last weekend was quite unique or quite unusual in that all of the games were 3 o'clock kickoffs. Oh no, there was one that was 6 o'clock, sorry, but that wasn't televised either. No. So, or it was televised in America or something like that. There was some weird experiment going on, but why are we getting so few televised games?
And then tomorrow, or no, Wednesday, isn't it? Was it Wednesday the next round of games?
Yeah, nothing at all.
Pay-per-view again?
Pay-per-view, nothing on Sky. Absolutely abysmal coverage. Liverpool, I think it's Liverpool v Preston, the Cup that's getting shown instead. So 2 Liverpool games in a week, no Scottish football games. No, and you know what? You've got about 1 million channels there, Sky. It's not either or. You can show them both. You've got a red button. You still use a red button. Still got fan cam.
Still got fan cam. Player cam. Remember?
Still got player cam.
That kind of went out of fashion. That went out of fashion quicker than 3D football. Remember that as well? They had a 3D channel for a bit. But not to get bogged down in this kind of stuff, but when Sky took the sole rights, the exclusive rights to Scottish football, I don't think many people were all that enthusiastic about it because BT did quite a good job of it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they were outbid. Sky bought it and BT didn't, right? But I don't think any of us really expected for it to be so half-arsed.
Do you think Sky have done that thing? You know how sometimes movie studios will like buy the rights to a movie but shelf it and just not make the movie?
Option it, yeah.
Do you think that's what they're trying to do to Scottish football? Right, we'll buy up all your games, but we won't show anyone. We're not going to show them, we're just going to buy them.
I think basically they have. I think I know a lot of people were totally against Sky. I didn't really have didn't really have a strong opinion on it. I was just like, whoever's going to show the games.
BT stuff was good.
Yeah,
People liked the BT stuff with Chris Sutton and all that.
What I thought at the time was, look, I don't really care who's showing it, just somebody show me the games. But they're not even doing that. It really is just about 4 derbies a year for them, and then a sorted who cares about the rest.
It's absolutely miserable. We are away to Hibs though, Melee midweek, tricky match. You sucked in through your teeth there, which suggests it might be.
I don't want to do it again because, again, this is a new team. We don't want to saddle them with all the previous team and all that, but 2014 was the last league victory there. Big Virgil scored a peach of a free kick. It's
4th v 5th.
Yeah, it's the 3 losses in a row Hibs have had, so it is a good time to get them.
They've only won 1 in the last 5.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I still think they're a decent team. They have got good players, a couple of players who had maybe signed for Celtic, Nisbet and Doig, so I'd like to see how they get on. But with Celtic now, I'm confident that if Celtic go out and play their game, we'll win games, whereas at the start of the season you're worried, will Celtic turn up? What Celtic are we going to get? Not really got that anymore. If we can play it as well as we've done in the last 3 games, I think we'll win the game comfortably. But see, if we need to, like we could have in the last 3 games, if we need to step up, we can step up. I think we've got another gear to go. We're just managing these games really well.
And it's another difficult tie. If we navigate this, Steve, we've been at a lot of difficult away grounds.
Them all.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of difficult teams off. It's a very, very important game for Celtic.
Yeah, it is, and there is that thing where we just simply don't win there. That's the thing. But these records are made to be broken. But that's what we said going into the Livingston game. We talked about how there's no such thing as curses, there's no such thing as bogey teams and all that kind of stuff. But then after the game, we're like, all right, come on, give us a win there. So it's kind of the same with Easter Road. We don't tend to travel there very well in recent years. But with all we've been talking about, we're getting better. We're getting more solid.
We've got that momentum behind us, that all-important momentum.
It's a good word for it. And the St Johnstone game...
I didn't make that word. That word already existed.
Right, okay. Right.
That word, momentum, that word existed.
Credit the dictionary,
Did you think I made that word up?
Yeah.
No, that already existed.
I thought you were very, very clever, but it's up to the dictionary, is it? Jesus wrote that word. But what I was saying about the St Johnstone game is it's total control at the minute. And yes, people would like more goals, people would like more chances created, but teams aren't going to readily give up chances to Celtic, especially not at home, but we're completely controlling games. And it's simply about patience. It's about belief in what they're doing. It's about variety up front. It's about changing things up a bit. And I think Celtic are getting better at doing that. And I think hopefully we can do much the same to Hibs.
Rangers v Aberdeen. We need to keep an eye on their fixtures, don't we? 4 points. We need to we did say what would represent success for Celtic. We talked about single figure gap. We said after we'd lost to them at Ibrox and lost a couple of games and things were looking pretty bad for Celtic, we said, going into the next Glasgow derby, we have to remain within touch and distance of them. They can't be out of sight by Christmas. And we're kind of on course for that if we get a good result against Hibs, aren't we, Melly?
Yeah, right now we should look at it as we have this week we've got Hibs, then we've got Livingston at home, then Dundee away before the next international break. 9 points out of that. That's great. Right now it doesn't really matter what Rangers are doing because, as you said, we'll have been to Easter Road, Pittodrie, Ibrox, Livingston and
Motherwell,
Tynecastle, all and Fir Park as well, all away from home, so which means we'll get the better round of fixtures next time round. But right now Celtic are looking like juggernauts again, like they're just on a roll, and we just need to keep that going. We don't want to do this against these teams and then the first hard fixture that comes up we come unstuck. I don't quite think that will happen, but it's going to be a good test during the week and I'm really looking forward to it.
Because we have been here before. We won that 6 games in a row earlier in the season, and then the wheels kind of come off. And not that we're going to go the rest of the season winning every game. That would be absurd. But just need to keep an eye on don't get carried away just yet. We're getting better, but still work to be done. Yeah.
Slow, confident performances with positive results. That's what we need, and certainly a big game coming up. And on that, we shall end this episode of 20 Minute Tims. Thank you so much to everyone who's been listening and watching on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this show, please like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, or check out the Patreon if you're so inclined. Stephen, any final thoughts for this week?
No.
Great.
On the spot there, not really, but just to reiterate what I said up front, thoroughly enjoyable week for the old hoops. I've right enjoyed both of those games this week.
Bring on the high Bs.
Yes.
Not so much looking forward to Livingston game, Melly, obviously, with all the traffic stuff that's going on here. It's going to be an absolute nightmare getting back and forward to Celtic Park for Livingston game. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's been a good week for the Hoops. Just soured a wee touch this week with it by sad news that Wim Jansen is fighting dementia.
Yes.
So best of luck to Wim, an absolute Celtic legend who won us that league title that was all so important.
Thanks for watching and listening.